Another cool thing that group of Iraqi tourists started doing is it was like the Iraq version of a freestyle battle. Like, because they had one dude that everyone looked to. They're like, this is our boy who can sing. And then our host can sing too. So first, that dude sang for a bit. And then our host came out of nowhere kind of trying to like show him up. Like, you're not the only one who's got some pipes here. And then he started to sing in Arabic. And then they were like, all right, let's throw down. And so they both sat down on a mat and went back and forth. I couldn't tell if it was just like a friendly freestyle cipher or if they were actually battling. But one person would like sing like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not going to try to like imitate it. And then the next person would go back with some even harder bars. And they would just exchange until I think eventually the guy was like, all right, you win to our host.
We have some audio of it. I'll actually show it to you. I'll put some in right here.
And I wonder if they were making up any of the words or if they were just reciting different passages of the Quran. Like, no idea.
Yeah.
What did we do afterwards?
That honestly concluded the majority of our trip in the marshes. So I think we boated back. We got some great stuff on the water. But then we kind of just went back. We thanked our host, and then you gave him some gifts.
I gave him the Crankin' Hoons t-shirt, the red classic one. That's back on sale in the Barstool Sports store, so check it out. And I gave him a Hippo Mode shirt. I was worried because in the Hippo Mode shirt, the guy's holding a bottle of something, which could be a beer. I didn't want him to be like offended, or maybe he's not allowed to wear anything that has a beer on it, but it doesn't say beer. Could easily be a bottle of orange soda or something like that.
Yeah, I think he appreciated it.
And he had like a bunch of kids at his house, so I assume one of them will want to rock those.
But he was a very gracious, sweet guy, so we thanked him. He thanked us. I don't know if we'll ever see him again, but it was just an amazing one-time experience.
Yeah, no, that was the highlight of my trip. So if you go to Iraq, definitely make sure to check out the marshes.
Yeah, hit us up. Hit up Wonton Don on social media if you really are serious about it. And then,
reach out to Bilweekend. They're a little pricey, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
We got a prayer going on right now. I think we can power through.
It's not too bad.
Yeah. It kind of adds an effect, and then you know that we're really reporting live from Turkey. So we drove back, very uneventful drive back. I think it was smooth. We both slept some, and
at this point we were cooking. We were cocky. I was cocky. I was feeling good. We said goodbye to our host. He wasn't going to be with us for that night, but we had asked him for some recommendations because you had seen a taco place.
Yeah, this was the first time me and John were on our own. We got dropped off at a new hotel, and I was like, "Is this safe? Like, if we want to go out exploring?" And he was just like, "Yeah." Like every Iraqi we talked to, when we would even bring up safety, they'd be like, "Of course Iraq is safe. Of course Baghdad is safe." But no, our guide did tell us at one point we were walking by a street. He's like, "Don't walk down there."
Yeah, they had some roadblock. Oh, I would have loved to see more of that though, because they were fascinating streets. They were roadblocked off from the main ones so that you couldn't drive down it.
Yeah.
But they looked like 1940s, like nothing had really been updated, and it was a little, probably slums to be honest, like really, really,
slums,
really
rough. I think even like prostitutes, things like that.
Extremely rough, probably dangerous. So we shouldn't have walked down that. But boy, was it tempting, just because it was like, that was like the first day when we were running.
Yeah, he actually said it's the area of Baghdad that used to be the Jewish district.
Oh wow.
Because Baghdad historically has had a large Jewish population. I think a lot of them have left, or at least left that area that they used to live in historically, and it's since become kind of a rundown, more of a dangerous area. But that's not where our hotel was, so he said we were good to go. And even before coming to Iraq, I was just like Googling, are there nightclubs, bars, restaurants? And I came across the taco restaurant and bar, and when we looked it up, it looked like to only be a 10-minute walk. So we were like, that sounds like a good first experience on our own.
Yeah.
If we can survive this 10-minute walk, we should be good to go.
And we walked by the Palestine Hotel, which is where Saddam Hussein used to put all of the foreign journalists who would report.
Yes.
And he thought it would be funny because then they would all have to say reporting live from Palestine.
Yes.
And he thought that would be funny, especially for like Jewish journalists and people of Western.
Yeah, because this was back when like American and Israel were very intertwined. I mean, we still are, but yeah, he just, I don't know. He got a kick out of just having the journalists say, I'm reporting from Palestine. And he also put a giant picture of George H.W. Bush on the floor of the Palestine Hotel. So all the journalists would have to like walk over a face of their president.
Allegedly.
Quite the jokester. Quite the jokester.
We didn't walk in there and see that, but it is a big, tall building from the outside. Pretty, rather impressive. So we walked by that, and then we went to the taco place, and it was something.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we had to show our passports to even get through the front gate, but a very large establishment.
Yeah. Well, and guys with guns patted us down, which actually makes you feel better because it's like you're not going to be in a taco place where anybody's really just going to walk in here.
Yeah, and I feel like that the taco restaurant bar would be like a prime time target for terrorists because they're like Western influence. What the fuck?
It was not a small restaurant. It was a rather large dining room.
Yeah, and we were, I think, the first people to arrive.
Yeah.
The entire wait staff, by the way, it rocks ponchos.
Yeah, remember, so we walked in and it was so weird, and I'm like, is this a late town? Like, I didn't expect Baghdad to be like a late town, but it really much was. It was not like, we were not there at like 5:30, we were there at like 8:30, right? And I think there was nobody in there besides like save a few, but they were like, we couldn't figure it out because they were staffed so heavily. They had like 9 waiters and waitresses.
Yeah, and when I just asked, I was like, can we sit down and eat? I got a really weird look, and I was like,
yeah.
They were like, is the kitchen even open?
They were like, drinks, yes, food, we'll check, as if we were like early.
Yeah, no, so Baghdad and Iraq in general is such a late place because in the summer it's so hot you can't do a thing during the day. So a lot of the activity has just been pushed further back. So that's why like all of the markets, you can get a haircut, you can do whatever, even at like 11 p.m.
Yeah. So the waiter and the guy, the host, if you will, who was seating people, both spoke enough English.
Yeah.
And they were very nice, and they were like, we want you to love this place, so what do you want?
And we started with 2 beers, and he asked us, do we want Mexican beers?
Yeah.
Which I thought meant a Corona. Yeah.
Or a Dos Equis or something.
But no, a Mexican beer is a beer with a salted rim and a little bit of lime juice in it.
And then, like put the lime juice in the bottom, like a shot or 2 maybe.
Yeah.
And then pour the beer right on top of Budweiser.
Yes. Right? I mean, that was my favorite beer of the trip.
Yeah, it was refreshing.
Very refreshing. And so we thought, hey, the Mexican beer was good. Now let's try a Mexican cocktail and order a few margaritas. Because, I mean, it's called Taco Restaurant Bar. They did have a big menu, so I figured they'd be like, oh, yeah, we make the best margarita. When I ordered it, I did get a weird look from the bartender. And I was like, margarita Mexican? He was like, yeah, sure, I can do that. So that wasn't reassuring. And then these things came out, and this was the worst drink of the trip.
Yeah, and at first it was a little misleading because he was a real bartender. Like, they had a full-on bar back there. They had a big drink menu, and he was like, I don't know what it's called, like the butane fire, where you kind of like finish stuff off. He had like scorched the lemons.
Yes.
And like garnished our margaritas.
Yeah, he was
like, all right,
mixologist for sure.
Exactly.
So yeah, it seemed like he knew his shit. And I don't know, these things came out and like, we didn't even check to see if they had tequila. So I don't know what type of booze he put in it.
Yeah, he didn't ask.
It just tasted like Rubinoff vodka mixed with just pure lime juice.
Yes. Fake, like artificial lime juice.
And the moment I finished that, I was just like, holy fuck, like something feels off. Like I feel pretty lit up, and we've only had like a beer and a margarita.
Yep.
But we were having a good time, and we still hadn't eaten. So we then got 2 taco platters. Now, the taco platters, I was pleasantly surprised. They came in these like deep fried flour tortillas, and we got a meat one, a chicken one, and a fried shrimp one. And obviously I wasn't expecting like Mexican level quality or like California level quality of Mexican food, but honestly, very good. Like better tacos than I've ever had in Europe.
Yeah, they were really tasty. And he said they were going to be. He was like, they're delicious. Trust me. And
Yeah.
he was right.
We trusted him. And then we were first at a table. We made our way to the bar where the only other two people in there were. They actually started talking to us. They asked if they could bum a cigarette, so I gave them one. And then we just started chatting them because they spoke perfect English.
Perfect.
Didn't really have an accent, but it turns out they were two local Iraqi kids.
And we say kids because they were definitely younger than us.
He claimed to be 22, but I feel like the dude could have been like 18. I don't know.
It was close.
But
definitely educated students.
very, very educated. Like, dude, he like was asking us, "Do you like country music?"
Yep.
He was like, "Iraqi music sucks, but do you like country music?" And then was giving us a history lesson on like all these different country musicians.
Yeah, he was like, well, at first he was like, you guys are awesome because these are real vintage Iraqi cigarettes, which I guess you had picked up in the market, maybe?
Yeah.
And so he was like thrilled that you didn't have like bad cigarettes. And then he was like, oh yeah, he was talking to me and he was like, do you know Father Joe Misty? Which is like...
I've heard of Father Joe.
Yeah, like a country singer well known in America. And I was
Is he known as like being the father of country, maybe?
No, that's just his name.
Okay.
Like almost like a stage
But
name.
he's a country. He's not like a modern day
He
country.
is.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so that was that one that he mentioned. I have the name of the one that you're thinking of. He also was like Anthony Fantano. I'd never really heard of him. But then he was like the father of Iraqi traditional music, I believe is the way you described it, is Nazim Al-Ghazali.
Nazim Al-Ghazali.
Nazim.
That was the guy he liked.
Ghazali. Yeah.
He was like, newer Iraqi music sucks, but
Yes.
Nazim fucking bangs.
So I still have yet to look that up, but I was going to look that up and see if we could put some of that in the edit or like something that sounded like that.
Yeah. No, they
If
were
I
some of
liked
the most talkative and friendly kids we've met, and they didn't shy away from talking politics at all.
No, we really got into it. Like
Yeah.
he was like right into the thick of it. Like, well, we were also getting a little banged up.
We were a little banged up. Luckily, I did have the Osmo rolling, so we'll have to go back and like see what we were even talking about.
I forgot we rolled for like 35 minutes.
Yeah, we filmed our whole conversation. I think we'll be able to make out what they're saying, but they were definitely. I mean, there was two young kids hanging out at a taco bar on like a Saturday night, so they were probably come from one of the more. I don't know.
It's hard to know.
Probably richer family, but I have no idea. But very friendly, and like talking with them, I felt like I was hanging out with two kids from the U.S.
Absolutely.
Almost. Yeah.
They were cool. I think we had actually kind of wished that they had said where they were going because they were like, all right, we got to get out of here. They're going to charge us like a cover.
Yes, but you assume that they were like heading to like another party, and I'm like, no, they're probably heading home. Their parents are probably like, where the fuck are you?
I know.
Stop hanging out with the goddamn American vloggers at the taco bar.
I did assume that. I swear, kids will be kids, and I swear I was like, I bet you they're going to some like EDM rave underground. Or something.
Yeah, you're like, damn, they didn't invite us to the house party. I'm like, dude, those kids are going home. Those kids probably weren't even allowed to be there in the first place.
So they left. We said goodbye. We exchanged Twitter, which was funny.
Yeah, I didn't even know this was his Twitter, but I think I told him my Twitter. So I posted, I was like, I'm out of Margaritaville in the Middle East right now. And he commented, I checked out the page, it was him, and his Twitter handle is an absolute piece of shit.
At an absolute piece of
Yes,
shit.
yeah.
Which is very funny, because he was sort of like this, like...
He had a sense of humor.
He had a great sense of humor, but he also was like worldly. Like he had thoughts on politics, he had thoughts on foreign policy, he had thoughts on Iraqi stuff. So meaning it reminds you of like the kid who's out of college and is like coming to grips with a lot of these like thoughts.
Well, I would say he's more informed than probably like 75% of kids his same age back in the U.S. And that's because when you're growing up in Iraq, you kind of have to be informed.
Yeah.
Like all this shit is gonna affect your day-to-day life.
Absolutely.
But yeah, they were really chill bros.
Yeah, they really were.
And then we realized like, oh, this place actually is popular. We had just showed up too early because by the time we left, it was packed.
Yeah, I turned around, every table was filled.
Yes, and it seemed like a very fancy place. Like this wasn't like the Iraq version of an Applebee's.
No.
This was like just the parking lot was filled with luxury cars, and it seemed like
that threw me for a loop.
The elite in Baghdad would come here, get grab a nice meal, have a couple cocktails, and listen to live music.
We didn't get that much food and drink, but our bill was definitely more expensive than other places.
$80 for about like 4 beers, 2 margaritas, and 2 orders of tacos.
Yeah, and so it was funny because he was this kid was railing on music. He was like, "Don't stay here, it sucks."
Yeah,
it was like
we were like, "Oh, that they have live music here." He was like, "It sucks."
Yeah, he was like, "It's not worth it." And honestly, it was very pleasant. It was like a guy playing saxophone with a small microphone. They didn't amp it up so you could still talk.
Yeah.
It was like a very mature like way to set up a dining room that has nice Kenny G-esque saxophone in the background.
And it was very dark in there too, so it reminded me of like a
romantic
fancy lounge back in Manhattan.
Absolutely.
Or something.
It was like a romantic. And honestly, I saw a lot of couples like hanging out. It seemed like.
And then there's a lot of hotel bars in Baghdad. So on the walk back, we stopped in the Baghdad Hotel Bar for another like 6 beers.
We didn't count on that. We were having a good time at that point.
Yeah, and that the vibes in there were cool. There were probably some local Iraqi, and then there were businessmen from all over the world. We chatted up. I spoke some Chinese to a couple Chinese businessmen who were weirded out. We were like, "Yo, let's go buy the Chinese guys a round of beers." We walk over. They were very weirded out by me wearing sunglasses in a dark bar. I think they thought I might have been a spy. And they also were like, when we offered them the beer, they're like, "Yeah, we're actually leaving."
Yeah, we came over with like 4 beers, like, "Oh."
Yeah, so I wouldn't really say we made new friends, but it was a fun bar. Like, it was a fancy bar. It reminded me of just a hotel bar back in the U.S.
Yeah, same thing. They had very light, like, they were doing covers of like very popular Western, like top 20s. Like I think they were playing Sam Smith at one time, but it was just a saxophonist and a vocal accompanist, and they were just very lightly playing music in the background.
Yeah, and it did have a sort of American theme. It had like a Wild West theme, so they had just pictures of like random people dressed like cowboys on the walls, and I went over to take a photo on my phone, and the hostess walked up and was like, "Would you like a photo with the cowboy lady?" And she had a cowboy hat for me. I guess that might be something like random foreign businessmen want to do, is just like take a photo wearing a cowboy hat. Really, wherever you go in the world, because Venice has an American bar too, and it's also cowboy themed. I think a lot of people, when they think like, what's American, they think cowboys.
Yes, Wild West kind of
thing.
Horses.
It's kind of like the stereotype where when people think
John Wayne,
when people think China, they probably think pandas, or like and people wearing cheaphouse. But when people think U.S., no matter where you are in the world, they're thinking John Wayne.
And this was another one where like very heavily female wait staff and very normal attire. Like a restaurant in the U.S. looked exactly like that. Like not really covered up at all, like in any sense.
Yeah. So we stayed there till we were pretty lit up, and like
I was feeling pretty drunk.
I felt drunker than I should have been for how much we had to drink. I guess I did pregame a little bit because in that area of the city, tons of spots where you can buy beer and liquor. I feel like every block there was a new liquor store in that part of Baghdad. So we got back and then realized we didn't have any water. I think we did have water. I just didn't know it at the time. We had a lot of water in the fridge. I wish I had known, but I didn't want to go back to the lobby. So
remember, because of the lobby, we didn't mention this. Every hotel that we stayed at, honestly, we had great luck on this trip, both in Turkey and Iraq. Like everything worked out with accommodations, but every hotel has their little idiosyncrasies. And this one, I went down immediately because we were staying in the same room and we had one small towel.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I went down immediately and was like, "Can I get a towel to room 306? And they were like, yeah, no problem. Just give us a few minutes. And I waited probably 40 minutes.
Yeah.
No towel. So we just wound up going out. I was just like, whatever. The next morning, same thing. We'll get to that, but I asked for a towel probably 3 or 4 different times and they were just like, yeah, no problem. What's your room number? We'll bring it up. I think they didn't have towels because they just didn't bring us towels.
Or toilet paper.
Or they didn't know that we were in the room. They were a little disorganized.
Very disorganized. That place.
I don't think they knew that we were
I would
in
not recommend the Oscar Hotel in Baghdad. But so we went to bed. We woke up the next morning. This was probably the low point of the whole trip, Turkey and Iraq. We were brutalized.
What do you mean by that?
just brutally hungover.
Brutal.
And my theory is, well, at first I was like, I thought you were actually in better shape than me because I woke up super early. I can't sleep when I've been drinking too much. So I woke up like 2 hours before you and went and had some breakfast. That didn't make me feel any better. At one point, I was like, I'm just going to go for a walk. And I like walk out of my hotel, got my headphones in. I make it like a block away and I'm like, what am I doing? I got to remember that I'm still in Baghdad. I don't even have my passport on me. Got the fucking headphones in. I'm trying to cross like 4-lane highways. I was like, all right, I'm going back to the hotel. I should not just be going for like a leisurely stroll. Especially, you don't want your fucking headphones in when you're walking around Baghdad. There's a lot of activity. You got to keep your head on a swivel. So I went back. For some reason, I had a couple cups of tea. That made me feel better. I was able to fall back asleep. But by the time I woke up, you were then brutalized.
It was
projectile
weird.
vomiting.
Yeah, it was a small delay. Same thing. I'd woken up and I guess I hadn't moved too much because I was just kind of texting and looking at stuff on my phone. And then I got up and my day started. And it was 6 hours of just extreme nauseism, like nauseous in the stomach. You had the head you didn't get the stomach, but I had the head thing that you had for sure, like feeling nauseous in the head. You get up.
Nauseous in the head, I like that.
Yeah, you kind of wander over, and then you're like, and I was just chucking. I didn't have anything. It was too late at that point to get the tacos and the margarita out, way too late. So it was really just bile. I was trying to drink water, right? Because then you're dehydrating yourself. And I was like trying to drink water, and then just chuck up the water. And it was like a rolling nauseous thing where like, even when I laid down, I just was like, oh no, and then I was starting to think like, is this food poisoning? Because this is feeling worse than a hangover.
Yeah. Now, my theory is that it wasn't food poisoning. It was fake alcohol poisoning.
Right.
Because I had the tacos too. I felt fine. But those margaritas, like, I'm telling you, that hit me in a weird way that normal booze doesn't hit me. And I am well acquainted with fake booze because when I lived in China, they used to offer free drinks to all the foreigners if you showed up at a club. Which was just absurd. If you were like white, you could just drink for free there. But then I realized that they would bring out a bottle of Absolute, but it'd be filled with like vodka made in a bathtub. And it would give you a brutal hangover. You would get drunk, but it wouldn't be quite the same buzz. And that's how I felt. So I think the margarita was made with some sort of fake booze, maybe like fake tequila, because maybe it's hard to get real tequila in Iraq.
Yeah, and so you wound up getting, in the beginning of this, from like 9 to 12, you got to sleep a little bit. I was like wanting to sleep and fall asleep, and I couldn't. So we wound up kind of losing that day a little bit, which sucked. Like, I would have loved to have gone back out in Baghdad, and like, you were able to rally and kind of go back out and see some of the green zone. And
yeah, so I was able to go back out that day alone. I thought you were going to be able to rally because I went out alone and tracked down a pharmacy. So I risked my life to make him feel better. The first pharmacy I went to, they were like, we're only for people who have diabetes. So I didn't know pharmacies like that existed. I finally found one, and I just looked up the Arabic word for nauseous and just had it on my phone. And he hooked me up with something. Did that make you feel better at all?
Well, I think the problem was, so ironically, as soon as you left, I had finally laid down after barfing, and it was like, the nauseous feeling had slightly cooked off for like a few minutes. So I was like, oh, finally, like some small relief. And when you got back, I waited a little bit. I was like, all right. I wasn't through it though. So then you were like, you should take that just to like, you're not out of this yet. And I took it, immediately drank some water, and then I think I barfed it back up too quick. So I don't think it really got to take effect.
Yeah. So when our tour guide showed up at 4.
By the way, we were supposed to check out of this. This is what I meant by like, I think the hotel was a little disorganized because I'm pretty sure chewkout was like 11 or 12, like a normal hotel.
Yeah.
We blew past that by
When
hours.
I walked down at 4, they were like, you guys are still here?
They were like, what?
And so you were like, we were all going to check out and go on this tour at 4. And you were like, I'm just going to be like puking out of the car when we're driving around.
Yeah.
So
because as soon as you were like, we got to check out, I was like, all right, I feel good enough. And I get my bag. I like, when you start to move, you kind of realize how still sick you are. So I was like packing up. I get everything together. I'm like about to go out the door, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
Shit, like I can't get in a car or like walk around and be barfing.
So we had to get you another room so you could go back and lie down. And it's probably for the best you didn't come because we had some long drives in traffic, which that would have been brutal if you were just like
but I didn't want to give up the
puking
room
out of the
at
car
first.
in rush hour Baghdad traffic.
I was like, this is working. They have no clue I'm here.
If I hadn't have come down, they wouldn't have known. You could have just
I think I could have just stayed
kept
in
the
that
room.
as long as I needed.
Yeah, so I had to go out solo, but I was with a guide this time. We went to a fancy cafe to meet up with these guys who run the Iraqi Travelers Cafe, where they host like meet and greets for foreign tourists. And it was this one guy getting his master's, and then another dude who actually works as a TV presenter, and they just like meeting foreigners and talking about life in Baghdad.
Shooting the shit.
Yeah, so I got to film my conversation with them. I also grabbed a pizza burger. I went to this pizza restaurant, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll just knock out a solo pizza review while I'm here. But the menu was all in Arabic, and they had one photo which I thought was a pizza, so I pointed at that, and he was like, pizza burger, okay. And I looked closer, and yes, it's a burger where instead of buns, they just have mini pizzas.
Kind of incredible.
Yeah, kind of incredible and not as bad. I expected it to be gross, to be honest, but no, pretty damn good. I think I gave it maybe a 7.1.
Better or worse than the wet burger in Turkey?
The first wet burger, I'm telling you, was incredible.
If you're wondering what that is, it's literally just a wet cheeseburger.
Yeah, it's popular in Turkey. They eat these sloppy burgers, which are covered in something. I don't know. They're very soggy.
Probably like camel spit.
I don't know, but it's like the late night food of Turkey. So we went there, and then he brought me to a shopping mall. And at first I was just like, I don't know how cool this is going to be. I mean, I guess it is cool to show people like they have shopping malls in Baghdad, but it was honestly cooler than your average shopping mall. When we arrive, you have to go through very strict security to get in. And they were wondering why I had a camera, and the tour guide had to be like, can you please film? We had to get permission to film. So that's weird. You get a full pat down, have to go through security. But once I got in, this place was magical. They had like a dinosaur, someone in this giant dinosaur costume, like the ones that look realistic, like looked like a giant velociraptor. They had someone dressed as Mickey Mouse. I don't think they got the trademark. I don't know if Disney knows about that. Please don't enforce don't enforce the trademark or whatever. Let them have fun. They had this mini double-decker bus that would take people around. Like it was made for kids, but take kids around the courtyard. And then once I walk into the mall, they have these dinosaurs that little kids could ride. They were like robotic dinosaurs. You hop on, I think you put a couple quarters in or whatever, and then they just turn on and literally move like an actual dinosaur.
Oh, that's awesome.
So way cooler than shit we have. You know those things we have in the U.S. where it's attached to the ground. You just go back and forth.
You put like a quarter in.
These were free-range dinosaurs that you could like walk like a lap around the first floor of the mall. And that was only the start. And then you go up another few floors, and they have a go-kart track. They have an arcade, but like a nicer arcade than we have in the U.S. They maybe had like 3 or 4 VR games that you could play. They had this thing called the Dino Train, which I think is why they had all the dinosaurs downstairs to promote this ride where you hop on a train and you go through these like giant lifelike dinosaurs that move around. I think they use that ride to actually teach kids about dinosaurs too. A bunch of restaurants, like a food court, some fancy clothing stores. So it was definitely a cooler experience than I expected. I would say nicer than the malls I had growing up.
And at this point, you were with the head guy, I won't say his name, but the head of Bilweekend tour company, and he was a great guy too, very accommodating. And then he took you to the green zone, right? I got to drive through the green zone. It was right after the sun had set, but I think the coolest monument I saw in there was these 2 giant swords. If you release this as a video podcast, you should have it B-roll in there,
pop up.
We did get to have a second part of the night, though. You came back, you picked me up.
You rallied. So we came back. our flight out of Iraq was at 3 a.m. So we got back at maybe 9 p.m. or maybe closer to 10 p.m. And we're like, all right, we got 2 hours or so before we need to go to the airport. And we had a very productive 2 hours.
Yes, we did. It was great. It was a nice finish to Iraq.
Great way to wrap up the trip.
Considering I had lost most of the day.
Yeah. So the whole trip, I wanted to get a haircut. I was going to do it in Turkey, but when I started to get one, and they did so much crazy shit to my face. They did like a wax, a face mask. They like burnt the hair inside my ears. That by the time it got to the haircut, I was like, we need to go. I have to go to a
You were in the chair for like 45
football
minutes.
match. Yeah. So I didn't get to get a haircut then. And then we never found another moment to get one. So then at that point, I was like, I'll just wait and do it in Iraq. But our first 3 days in Iraq were just nonstop. So finally, we had 2 hours. And I'm like, I need to get a haircut in Baghdad.
And we had seen some very cool hairstyles.
Yes.
Like, they have very stylish, modern, Western hairstyles.
Yeah.
You don't
Wild
see these a
hairstyles.
lot in New York or anything like that, or in other parts of America, but you can see how it's like super stylish.
Yes. And so our guide brought us to a barbershop with a solid reputation. And I said, I want the Iraqi style haircut. And it was,
like, you?
yeah, me. And he was like, I warn you, I'm going to have to like pretty much take all your hair off the sides and like a fair amount up top too. Cause my hair was long this trip.
What they basically do is they normally would take a 0 and just go up the sides, leave it a little bit long on top, but then like push it up.
Yes.
And like and then create that line and leave it up.
Yeah, no joke. This was the best haircut I've ever received in my life. It was long. The process was maybe like an hour, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Hour
and a half.
Yeah.
It was
So
long.
I kind of lost it because we went to a Turkish bath last night. But yeah, he did something crazy where he had that like. So first I washed my hair, and then he has a hairdryer, hairspray, and this tool that kind of just like flicks up your hair. And he got like so much volume where like my hair was probably like yay tall. And it's the first time I've rocked a cut like that. I've gotten a great response on social media. I need to learn how to get it back in that shape. Because if I could rock that every day, I think I would.
Yeah, you got it. He had like a thick comb that he would kind of, and then you take the blow dryer, and then he had like this curling thing too.
Yeah.
And he would like, and he had this technique where he just like plow through your hair and then just like blast it with air.
He blasted with air, and then sometimes he would pour a little or spray some of the hairspray into the hairdryer, so then it would just coat all my hair, and then it would just, he kind of like molded it, so it was just like
He was a pro.
perfectly shaped. And yeah, and the fade is perfect too. I mean, I would say the first 45 minutes he was just working on the fade on like each side. Because I've tried to do that in the past, and no one has ever done it as well as him. It always looks kind of weird. You have some like stray hair here that's clumping up, but this is just perfect fade. The best haircut I think I've received in my life. And even now it just looks like a normal, nice haircut. So I don't have to rock it Iraqi style all the time. It's just having had long hair for so long, I actually enjoy having nothing on the sides.
He really hooked it up. And then we'd been planning on doing this the whole time. Once again, we were running around so much that we couldn't quite match it up. And then he was going to take us to like a falafel place, and we were like, all right, it was closed. I think he had said somebody famous. Oh no, it was just like YouTubers had gone there a lot.
And I was like, can we go to a pizza place? He was like, dude, you are obsessed with pizza.
He did say that. He was like, you are obsessed with pizza.
And then he didn't understand. I was like, dude, we got to do a pizza review over here. Like, I tried to tell him, I was like, my boss is famous for pizza reviews.
Yeah, and we were like, if we drop a Baghdad pizza review, I think it'll crush.
Yeah, and we got to do the most authentic Baghdad pizza review as possible, because you can find Western style pizza places there, but they also have a Iraqi dish, which is very similar to a pizza.
Yeah, it was like lamb, raw lamb that they would kind of mash up with spices and maybe a little bit of onion, and then they would put like tomato paste or crushed tomatoes made into a paste, and then combine it all, and then kind of layer it on this flat cracker crust.
Mm-hmm. And then they could also add cheese if you wanted it.
Yeah, and egg, which is I've kind of had that before on like burgers. Obviously, I think I have had it on pizza, so I wasn't like, oh, that's weird. I've seen that actually in America. Actually, you know who used to do that? And Pizza. You know, and Pizza, there's one right around Barstool's office. But
I
anyway.
don't know.
they
Oh,
used-
yeah.
Yeah, they used to crack
Yeah,
an egg.
and.
So I kind of got used to it. And I was like, oh, that's actually pretty good. So, and then they had like an amazing oven. It was right out on the street, which is why we got great shots of it. And it was like a stone oven.
Yes, and they were happy to let us film. When we post it, we do need to tag them on Instagram.
Yep.
Like even these guys, they just had like a makeshift oven on the street. They have a social media presence. So
Yeah, they were all
everyone
about
was
IG.
very social media active.
They knew what we were doing.
That's probably going to be one of the first videos we drop
Yeah,
from the trip.
absolutely.
And then we kind of went straight from the pizza place to the airport, which was an ordeal in itself.
Yeah, so this was, our guide had basically said, okay, we had a personal car, but that he's busy. So we're going to have, we took a regular taxi from our hotel to just the outskirts. It was like the opening gate of Baghdad airport. And then he was like, okay, this is as far as he can go. So then we got out, and then I think we walked through the gate into like a parking lot, right?
Yeah.
And then we met up with an Australian guy
Yeah.
who was also being toured.
Escorted into the airport.
Right. And so we had all of our documents ready, and then we get put in like an SUV, and then we drive maybe 15 feet past this gate, and then
15 yards,
15
maybe.
yards.
Yeah.
And then I was like, what's happening? We're parking, and then we just get out.
We get back out, and then did they like recheck our
No, they didn't
documents?
even do this yet. We get out, and this was like through these barriers, and then we picked up like 3 more people.
Yeah.
And then we had to like pay. At this point, we're in SUVs now.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, you got to pay, and we'll figure that out. And so make sure you pay these guys. We'll get all your bags in the car. And then we get back into a different car, and then we drive through, showed our passports, sort of. Remember, that was the first one where like they asked for our passports, but there were so many people in the car that they kind of like just like looked in, and they were like, is everybody all right, fine.
Yeah.
And then we go through, drive, like you said too, it was actually a much longer stretch than we would have thought. It was like,
Yeah, I thought
actually,
we were at the gate of the airport. We drove for like 10 minutes,
Yeah.
it felt like.
It was like a longer highway again. We were like, I thought we were close.
Yeah, no, I assume like the airport is one of the biggest targets for terrorism.
Yes.
So, I mean, I guess all this extra security makes sense.
It does. It was just funny that we had done that, and then we drive up, and we haven't even really gone through security yet. That was just like the preliminary stuff, and then we finally get out. Oh, you're right, and they made us get out, and then they checked it with a bomb dog.
Yeah, we lined up all of our bags in a row.
Well, even before
Brought the
that,
bomb
remember?
dog.
They had made us get out, and they checked the car as if they hadn't given us the SUV.
Yeah.
And then they checked it, and then we got back in, drove up, got out, lined up our bags, did the bomb dog again. And at this point, we're near the gates. We're near like
Yeah,
the
at this point,
entrance.
we're at the front of the airport. And
Yeah.
then after the bomb dog does his second pass, we then get in line to go into the airport. And you go through like very intense security just to get in the airport.
You're not even like a foot in the door.
So
before.
that's actually, that was their main security line. So you go through security before you can even check in for your flight.
Yep.
And then I think that was kind of the last line of security. Once we went through that, we could check in, and then we just had to go through immigration.
Yeah.
Um,
But
what?
no, yeah, for sure.
I'm probably missing
Well,
a couple
we did-
more layers of security.
We did the initial, because all the European airports that we went through had that, like, as soon as you walk in the door, you put this stuff on, like
Yeah.
a belt. They, like, kind of check you. And then we went through the line that we had to check in, and we weren't checking bags, was really short. And then we went through customs, and that's where we saw the guy smoking cigarettes.
Yes.
And you know, they didn't ask us any questions. They just stamped.
Yeah, the only question is like a child tried to walk through security with me at the same time. He got a little too far ahead of his parents, and the guy was just like, I didn't even know there was a kid like walking with me. And he was like, one at a time. And I was like, what are you talking about? One at a time. I was like, yes, it's only me. And then I looked down. There's
It's like,
just,
sir, your son.
he's like, your son needs to wait. And I was like, I've never seen this kid before in my life. Actually, I had seen that kid before because he was behind us in the security line playing some fucking cell phone game that just had like bomb sounds and like
It was that-
red
it was like,
alerts. It was like,
tick, 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 tick.
tick, 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 and I was like, tell your kid to shut that fucking thing off. He's giving me like a fucking panic attack.
So, and then this was like traditional security. So then you go through traditional security, whatever. We did all this. And then we're in the regular part of the airport.
Yes, the regular part where we were making bets like, will they serve termies? Because I don't know, it looks like a modern airport, but no, there were no termies in sight. And like pretty much all the places where they serve booze in Baghdad, they make it more of like a private setting. So if you're just a person who does not drink, you wouldn't even see it. So there were no bars inside the airport. They did have 2 cafes.
No card though. They didn't accept card.
Yeah, even at the airport, you couldn't use card. They did have a duty-free shop. They actually served booze in the duty-free shop.
Yeah.
And the cafes had like 3 hoon lounges inside them, little like personal hoon lounges where you could go and smoke cigs. And they sold cigarettes there. I bought a pack of cigs there because I realized, I think somewhere throughout our like 6 security checks to get into the airport, I lost my vape. So my vape is back in Baghdad now.
I'm just waiting for some guy to find that in the SUV. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, so I was going through like nicotine withdrawals at the airport. Luckily, I could buy a pack of cigs and smoke them while waiting for my flight. And yeah, so that was... then we actually had to go through security one more time.
I was just going to say, ironically, so this is always a thing even in the States for me, right? Because I have equipment. And even if we were very light, we didn't have a lot. But it's always this... It's kind of never worth taking out your camera in the security, even in America, because 99% of the time, they don't check it. A few times we'll get somebody being like, this is an electronic, like, why didn't you take it out? And it's like, honestly, it's just worth it having you take it out. Mm-hmm. So, ironically, we had gone through all these checkpoints, and then this was like, I don't know if it was the airport. I feel like Pegasus was a little bit more like, we're going to have this last checkpoint because maybe they didn't trust the airport or they just wanted one extra layer because they scrutinized my bag more than anybody else.
Yeah.
They pulled out the camera. They pulled out, I forget what he was looking at, but they were asking me questions about it and they were just like, what is this? What is this? And they eventually they were like, fine, this is all good.
Because if you had like one corrupt official at the airport, maybe they'd be able to get them through the first rounds of security. So then Pegasus wanted to do their own check.
And it was just surprising after going through all of that and then finally being at the gate and they were like, okay, one more x-ray, one more metal detector. And then they were like, what is all this stuff?
Yeah.
I was like, here?
But everything went smoothly.
Everything went fine.
You didn't have a bomb, which was good.
Yeah, that helps.
And then we took off around 3:30 in the morning and landed back in Turkey at like 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah, and the flight back was even more pleasant than there. I think we slept
I slept the whole flight back, which was nice.
It was nice. And we were debating, remember, we were talking, because we were getting super excited. And we were like, you know what? I was like, all the March Madness, this was like Sunday at 8 o'clock back home, 3 in the morning for us. And it was like the Oscars is starting and the March Madness games are done. So I was like, you know what? Everybody's on Twitter right now. Why don't we post? It was like you post that we went to Baghdad.
I think we mentioned this in one of the earlier episodes. We didn't let anyone at Barstool know we were going to Iraq.
We didn't post anything.
Because they'd probably say no. Or they would just be confused. Like, I'm not going to tell fucking Portnoy I'm going to Baghdad. Yeah. He would be like, that makes 0 sense.
You don't want people to worry.
We didn't want people to worry. So once we were past security and about to take off, we were like, I think it's safe.
Yeah, and we were excited. And I was like, everybody's on Twitter right now. Let's do it. And then it was funny because, people reacted kind of in a great way, the way we thought it would. People were like, wow, that's amazing. Holy shit. And then the Will Smith thing happens too.
Oh, that was the first thing I saw when we landed. I think that happened as we were landing in Turkey. So the moment I got some internet, I saw the slap. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah. So that overtook a little bit of it, but obviously we'll put out a ton of content.
Oh, yeah, we have a ton of content
That'll
coming
be great.
out. It was funny. I told you we didn't tell anyone from Barstool we were going. The only person who knew, who was even indirectly related to Barstool, is Sam Decker, who's playing pro basketball out here in Turkey. We met up with him for breakfast the day of our flight to Baghdad. And I was like, hey, man, if I don't text you by the 28th, could you just text Big Cat and be like, your boy Donnie might be missing in Iraq? So that was our only contingency plan.
Sort of. We did have, you're right, but remember we had mentioned too,
my parents knew I was there.
Yeah, our coordinator too though, who was initially going to come with us and then wound up not coming with us, that we had mentioned this on the last episode. He was in Turkey as sort of an extra, we did have signal in Baghdad, so we certainly could have texted him if something crazy happened. And so he actually wound up being like kind of a lifeline here, who knew exactly what we were up to.
Yeah. Yes, we were hanging out with Sam Decker because I knew he was a friend of Barstool, has done videos with them in the past, has been on Pardon My Take a bunch. And I knew he at least knew who I was because his wife, Olivia Harlan Decker, posted something on Instagram a year or two ago being like, she was drinking a beer at the airport and she was like, my husband calls these termies. And I was like, who is this? Oh man, it looks like I have a female fan. And then I found out that her boyfriend, Sam Decker's a big stoolie. It was probably him who told her to start calling airport beers termies. So I knew I was at least on his radar. And I was like, hey man, we're going to be in Turkey. We'd love to go to one of your games. Unfortunately, the snowstorm caused the game that we were going to be around for to be canceled. So we didn't get to see him play, but we did at least meet up and we filmed an interview that will probably drop, maybe even in
Before
one of these
this,
podcasts.
yeah.
And yeah, we just got to hang out and have lunch. Him and his wife were great. We had a really good time with them. Should I wait for that guy?
You're good.
So we had a wonderful time with them. But a random stoolie reached out to me, or just a fan of my content who's from Turkey, and he was like, hey man, like I heard you're trying to go to a basketball game. Two of my friends work in sports journalism out here. They actually work for the team Efes. EFES. Efes is a beer brand out here. So it used to be called like the FS Pilsner team. The new president passed a law, no promotion of drugs or alcohol in media, so they just took out the Pilsner, and now they're called FS Andalou or Andalou FS. And he put me in touch with these two journalists, and they were like, we can get you press passes to the game. You can meet some super fans beforehand. And we were like, that sounds perfect. And the game lived up to the hype.
Yeah, it was kind of beyond what I thought it was going to be because we went to the bar. It was a cool bar. Right outside of them, like the mosque and the windows, which was kind of cool. And this was a regular bar where people were drinking FS beer for sure. And then we kind of walked over.
We walked over with the biggest FS fan.
Yeah, and he was great.
In Turkey.
And did a little interview with him. And then we had the line was huge to get in, but we had a special entrance, which was nice. And they took us down on the court for pregame and everything, and we saw like the dancers getting ready and all of that. And these guys,
we had a full-on press pass.
And these super fans are known for drumming.
Yeah. They were drummed throughout the whole game. They had chants.
Very college atmosphere.
Very college atmosphere. Like, I don't know. Like, I've never been to a playoff game in the NBA or anything, but like, especially. We ended up spending most of our time sitting with the superfans. It was so loud in there that because when I go to a Celtics game, I'm usually kind of like up in the bleachers, and so like this felt like a louder atmosphere than some of the Celtics games I've been to.
And it was a very important game for FS, so that was
it helped their standings in the playoffs a lot. FS actually has Shane Larkin, who had a great season with the Celtics. We got to talk to him afterwards. The biggest surprise, though, is that they were playing Real Madrid. This was a EuroLeague game. And Yabusele, who you might remember as being on the Shanghai Sharks, I filmed a video with him while he was out there. In a lot of my Shanghai Sharks videos, I'm just freaking out about Yabusele, like screaming Yabba Dabba Doo. And I look out on the court. I'm like, that's fucking Yabu. I had no idea that he now plays for Real Madrid. And so while he's warming up at halftime, I'm just like, Yabu. He looks over and just immediately he's like, "What are you doing here? How's it going?"
He runs over.
Actually, he didn't even ask, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
He was just like, "Hey man, it's great to see you." Like we met like once in Shanghai. I didn't really think and we had DM'd back and forth, but I didn't know he knew me like that because why would he just be like, "Oh, Donnie's here"? Like, why would I be at his game in Turkey? But he knew exactly who I was. He came over.
Yeah, he smiled right away.
We chatted up. And I was looking back at our exchange. The last time we talked was right when COVID started in China. And I was like, hey, man, I'm going to go to your game next week. And he goes, I'm leaving China. They're going to cancel the league. This was before China had even like announced COVID. There were just like rumors of it. And I was like, what? You really think they're going to do that? And he was like, it's going to be way worse than you think. And like, it already is way worse than you think. So he just fucking bounced China even before they announced that the Chinese Basketball Association was canceled. So I hadn't seen him since probably like 2018 or something. And it was just like
Two old friends catching up.
Yeah. Two old friends catching up. And it was an electric game. They were down the whole game. They came back in the last couple minutes to win by 3.
So yeah, it was an awesome game. It really was a great finish too, and the crowd was just incredible. We had some great shots we'll put out. And it was funny though, at one point you were like, I'm gonna go down on the floor because our coordinator was down there and nobody was giving him shit.
Yeah, I thought we had like an all access pass.
I kind of knew, but it also just depends. It depends on where you are. Sometimes they're more lenient, sometimes they're like super strict. It just depends. And I didn't think you were pushing the limits by any means by going down back on the floor where we had been earlier. But it was during the game, and do you want to tell the story? You kind of started at the baseline.
I'm walking down. So first off, I'm dressed like an Efes super fan. So I'm not dressed like a media personnel.
You have a scarf.
I've got a scarf. I've got the shirt on. I'm rocking shades down courtside, and it's just like, I don't know. I'm definitely the only person courtside rocking shades. So right away, I'm kind of just walking like a circle around the court, and I'm getting weird looks from just every person working the event. And they eventually come over. They're like, what are you doing here? I show him the press pass, and the guy's like, okay. But then he goes and gets his supervisor. His supervisor's like, okay, so that's a press pass. It doesn't mean you can just like wander around courtside. You gotta go in the press box.
Which is funny because you weren't there before, but they were like, you got to go to the press box, which is across from where I am.
Yes.
So I'm watching this. I'm watching them talk to you.
You got to see. So yes, I was escorted to the press box, and then I get there, and then I'm just cheering on from the press box, surrounded by very serious journalists who are like trying to take notes, and I'm just cheering. So then I'm getting very weird looks in the press box, and someone comes over, he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I flashed the badge. You actually got that on camera. That's going to be a hilarious shot.
There's a great shot of this official, just like I couldn't hear him, but I could just see him asking Donnie, and Donnie just flips it up like, "Yep, I'm a big jack."
And the guy was like, "All right, I guess I can't say anything," but at that point, I was just like, okay, wherever I go down on the court, it's going to be very uncomfortable. I'm going back to the super fans. And I'm glad I did. That was probably the funnest thing.
Well, at this point, our connect, it comes down to me, and he's like, where's Donnie? He's no longer allowed to be on the sideline.
Yes, I was also, that guy was so nice of us to get us a press pass. I didn't want to get him in any more trouble. I mean, I definitely probably could have pushed the boundaries a little bit further, but I wanted to see the end of the game. I didn't want to get kicked out of the stadium, and I'm glad I didn't because it was electric.
And they were cool about it. Then they let us shoot like an outro on the court afterwards.
Yes.
We got an interview with Larkin, and Larkin was the man.
Very friendly, and Larkin's actually a Turkish citizen now.
Yes, he got his passport so that he can be counted towards the Turkish roster spots, which allows the team.
Yeah, he plays for the national team. He loves it out here.
Yes,
I think he's actually
as well.
Yeah, he's actually been offered a deal back in the NBA, and he's like, I don't want to be coming off the bench in the NBA. I'd rather just be like one of the best players on my team. He probably is. He's like probably one of the best players in that league.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think I don't know if he was the MVP, but I thought he might have been.
Yeah.
But he was. You could tell like the way they ran their offense through him. He was like the big shot guy.
Yeah.
It was like when we need a three, we would pass it to Shane Larkin.
Mm-hmm.
But he was cool to talk to. We got to talk to the coach, and the coach was the man. He was just like had a great vibe and was like obviously very press savvy and enjoyed your questions. I felt like.
Yeah. So Turkish basketball. It's
highly recommend. Like if you come to Istanbul,
recommended.
like definitely do it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely do it. Well worth it. I don't know how much tickets are, but
yeah,
I imagine it's affordable.
Similar fans, but he was saying these fans were just very friendly and they like playing drums and singing. Where if you go to a football match, they're a little more intense, like light and flares, getting like really angry and like really aggressive. These guys were just like passionate, but
super into
friendly
to the possessions, like very into the possessions.
Yeah.
Like defensive possessions, they would cheer. Blocks, they would cheer. Steals, they would cheer. Like very much like a college basketball.
And the
atmosphere.
drums didn't stop once.
No. Drums were heavy. And also, this was the one spot, too, where it was heavily mixed. Lots of women. Lots of hijab-wearing women who were just as into this game as the men. And it was, like, very mixed. So that was cool to see.
Yeah. Because, I'm trying to think if I saw... No, I guess I saw a woman at the sporting events in Turkey. It was just in Iraq where I didn't see a single female.
Yes.
All right, now on to our last sporting event. the bullfights.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this before, so we're gonna throw in some bonus content at the end here. This was back a week and a half ago, but yeah.
A week and a half ago, yeah. It's one of the only things we haven't touched upon yet. And so it's not a bullfight like they have in Spain where there's the matador who eventually kills the bull. This is just in like a rural village in southwestern Turkey, I believe.
Near
and
Bodrum, right? Near Bodrum.
Yeah. And whereas camel wrestling was a sport for rich people, because only they can afford a camel, everybody in the village kind of like raises cows and bull. So they all trot out their strongest bull, and they get him in the ring, and they kind of just headbutt. And I don't know how you win, but I know how you lose. You lose by either if one bull eventually runs away, or if the other bull tries to mount the other dude 3 times. It's kind of like 3 strikes and you're out. And once again, just like the camel wrestling, we had all access.
Yes.
We were able to wander in and see these 2 like the largest bulls weighed 2,000 pounds, I think, each.
Oh, yeah.
And you see them going at it. We were allowed to walk right up to it. Pretty much we could get as close as we felt comfortable.
Yeah. And they were even more, they didn't give a shit. Like the camel guys, like I said, I think we talked about it. They have like teams of people.
Yeah.
And they're kind of influencing it. There's no influencing the bulls. The
No.
bulls do what they want. So people didn't care at all if there were people in there with you, but they had no qualms about you being in there.
No, not at all. And you do have to keep your head on a swivel because they're going at it, but then like just at the spur of a moment, one of the bulls could just turn around and say, fuck this, I'm out, and just go charging wherever.
Yeah, and we had mentioned it before, like I was cool with the camels because the camels didn't have that nature. I could just tell. I've been around thoroughbred horses who are very high strung, and you kind of have to be very on your P's and Q's and watch where you are. The camels, I was like, this is gonna be totally fine, and it was. The bulls, I was back to no. If it was like, Donnie, if you want to go in, I had a long lens, and I was like, I'm not going in at first, just because bulls are a different animal. And
Yeah, it's a fucking bull.
We saw them loading off. And that was arguably kind of dangerous because like when you get them off the truck, they're like kind of fired up and they're like running off the truck and like looking at everybody like, who are you?
Yeah, who's getting run over?
And exactly. And then they kind of go bounding into like the circle. So they're like
because they have to corral all the bulls
Yeah.
onto a scale so they can weigh
Yes,
them
which
because
is
they have weight classes in bullfighting.
and that is not easy.
Yeah, not easy at all. A few of these would just like try to knock over the whole scale instead of hopping on.
You're trying to put a bull into a small space.
Yes.
It's gonna go about as well as you think it is. And it's like bulls have this interesting nature where they're very docile, but they have this intense nature of unpredictability.
They can snap.
And they don't even change their demeanor that much, but they will just be powerful in their nature. And you don't want everybody who's in front of them when they're walking towards you gets the fuck out of the way. They just scatter. And so you kind of take notes and you're like, I'm not going to let this bull just walk by me. I'm going to get out of the way.
Yeah, no, I remember that time. I don't know if you were there, but there was a bull about to run over this Turkish dude, and I had to be like, dude, and he like,
you said, sir.
oh yeah, it's like, sir, and he looks around, he's like, holy shit. Oh, that's one of the big boys. Hey, sir. Oh man, this guy's got green horns. That's how you know he's feisty. Because there were just rogue bulls all over the place.
Yes.
Even like in the middle of a match at one point, 2 bulls just said, fuck it, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like we are no longer, this fight is over. And they ran a lap around the ring and then just fucking ran over the gate. And we're boom, like.
And this happens.
Running around the countryside.
Yes, this obviously happens a lot because nobody was really that shocked. And this even happened the first fight we saw. The first fight we saw, the bull just tries to run up the mountain right where we are.
Yeah.
He tried to run right up the mountain, and I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be an interesting day. We're just going to have
The sidelines were fluid.
Yeah, they very much were. But most of them were honestly not like that.
Yeah.
Most of them, they did lock horns and go at it. There were some good ones. It was arguably better like wrestle fights than the camels because they're more powerful and intense, and they kind of go at it, and you can get into it a little bit. You kind of you pick a side and be like, oh, you can see them influence back and forth.
It was hard to tell what was going on at the camel wrestling because the two
They
necks
get
are just like
intertwined.
entangled. You can't tell who has the upper hand.
You don't know which one's which.
Yeah.
And they had all the stuff hanging off of them. The bulls, it's a little bit more of a sporting event. I got to fly the drone in there.
Oh, that's gonna look. You flew the drone while I was inside the ring too.
Yes, we got great stuff above. So it was.
When you were flying the drone. This is like I can't wait to look at the footage. Like both of the camel wrestling and at the bullfights, they hosted political rallies.
Yeah.
Where I think the mayor comes out to shake hands and kiss babies. So I see this whole political entourage walking into the ring, and I just follow them. And I just picked up like 3 or 4 beers. So he's going around shaking hands, and I'm right behind him, just going around handing out beers to people. I felt like a Turkish politician for a while.
And then, by the way, there's in the middle of a bull match. There's two bulls.
There's the bull going on while they're hosting the political rally. Like all the politicians and myself are just walking circles around the active fight. And then like after all the politicians left, I was like, I'm just going to hang out in the ring for a while. Fans were just handing me beers and stuff. So while I'm trying to like report on a bullfight, I'm also just like hammering drinks inside the bull ring.
You were doing better than the day before.
Yeah, because no one was like force feeding me booze. They would just be like, "Hey, do you want a beer?"
Much chiller atmosphere.
Very, very much so, and very friendly people too. Like, we got to learn. Because do you remember? So when we were at the camel wrestling, we told you there was about just all these competing bands blasting horns. So it was chaos.
It was loud and it was honestly annoying.
Yes, here they just had one band that would like move from group to group, and a Turkish dude was like, "Hey, we have a very traditional dance that we do to this type of music," and he taught me the whole dance. The tailgate setups at this place were just beautiful. They would pull up a truck, and then on the truck they would have a table, chairs, like a rug.
They would like have flatbed trucks that were all decked out. It was like a really casual Saturday at the park, and they had like I said, we were kind of on a mountain, so like everybody had
stadium seating.
Yeah, it was like viewing spots that were tiered, and you could like pull up your flatbed and just kind of hang out.
Yeah.
And the ones that we hung out with across the way, which was like a little bit more of a VIP section, they had an awesome setup.
Yeah.
It was just like this big flatbed truck, if you will, or like a wagon. It was more like a wagon. Mm-hmm. And then they had a table with chairs all around it. And you hung out with them for a little bit.
Yeah, they had like a feast up there, and they also had beers, raka, and yeah, unlike that dude who was force feeding me raka like blackout, these dudes were just very chill. Yeah, I had a couple cups of raka, but we awarded them. We walked up and we were like, "You just won best tailgate at the bullfights," and they were like, "Oh, sweet. Well, do you want to come up and hang out?" And yeah, at that point, I was like, "Is John even still filming?" Because I've been up here hanging out for like a half hour.
We were having a great time at that point. It was not as loud as the day before. Like the guy was not announcing during the fights, and it was funny because you were in there late when the bulls got really big. And I was shooting. It was very easy for me to shoot from the sideline.
Yeah.
And they would do the same thing though, where like I don't know why they would do this, but maybe like the one fight was coming to an end, so they would just start the next, and there would be 2 simultaneous bullfights in the ring, sometimes even 3 at the same time. Mm-hmm. And that was like pretty funny to watch you like run around and like not notice the one behind you. We're like, Donnie, look out.
Yeah, if you can watch one, but then you have your back turned to 2 other just gigantic live bulls.
Yeah.
Apologies, someone is putting away silverware there in the back.
Yes.
But no, I think we've covered most of everything we've done in Turkey. Obviously, watching some of these videos, you'll get a much better feel for what we're talking about. I don't know, do you want to just say some final thoughts on the trip?
Yeah, that's that. Thank you, everybody, for listening to Twisted History Presents The Road to Iraq, and it was a very successful road. Thank you, Donnie, for inviting me. I thought it was just an awesome trip. Now we get into the fun part of editing everything.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you, too, because these trips, they're not going to be the most, like, stress-free things. You got to rough it at times. Like, we haven't been staying in, like, 5-star hotels and stuff. Some of the hotels have actually been pretty rough, but you haven't like complained at all, and I think we've gotten some incredible content.
Yeah,
I know,
I'm really
like,
excited to put it out.
Leading up to this trip, I was stressing out a bunch because, like, at first we were planning on going to India, and then they canceled a few events we wanted to attend there. So at the last minute, we had to pivot to Turkey, and then our PA was like, maybe Iraq, and so I kind of just spent a full month trying to line up all these activities, like trying to like figure out the dates of camel wrestling, because you can't just Google camel wrestling. Nothing would come up. I had to like translate it to Turkish and then look on Google. And like there were just a million moving pieces, and somehow they all fell into place.
Yeah, thank you to Tommy, our coordinator. He's been awesome. Same thing. Like, we have to run. It's interesting because like putting up with like 1 or 2 star hotels has its issues, but if you can at least get like warm bed, you're like, okay, good. The tougher part is when you stay one night and leave, pack up all your shit. Stay one night, and leave, pack up all your shit. So that was like probably the part where we were like, ugh.
We've been on the go. We took a bunch of flights. And yeah, like most trips, it's like I can do as much research as I want, but I don't know if like any of these things are really going to live up to the hype, or if like, hey, is this going to make for solid content? Will they even allow us to film there? And it's crazy because like every single thing I had an idea about filming, we've managed to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is wild. Like I didn't think we'd be able to film a Turkish basketball game, and we got to film an incredible one.
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd be able to do camel wrestling and bullfighting because they were on the same day, but one of them got moved up a day, so we could do both of them. Iraq, I was honestly a little nervous, and like I kind of didn't even expect you to say yes when I was like, what if at the end of Turkey we go to Baghdad? And I thought, I was like, he's going to say no, and then just me and Tommy will go and film some stuff. And you were 100% game, and you've been enthusiastic the whole time, which I think really, helps the trip go smoothly and makes it just a more enjoyable experience.
Yeah, I'm really excited to put out all these videos. We're obviously going to re-promote these, drop them at the same time. Check it out. And maybe we'll do India in February or March of next year.
Next Feb, yeah. Let's lock it in.
The road to India starts next.
Wow, not as warm as I thought the waters in Iraq would be. Ancient Ottoman tradition. It's kind of like thumb wrestling, but they use their necks. I'm so scared right now. Don't worry about me getting trampled by a camel. 1, 2, boom! That's a pin! That's a pin! It's the most extreme hoon crank. You're the man. I'm rooting for your bull. I swim in the marshes of Mesopotamia.